What is happening, YouTube? Spectre here, back again. We're out in Scamp today, just doing a little shakedown on more than anything. I've not ridden this bike for, God, I don't know, maybe a month, maybe more. I don't even know at this point. But Saddlebags 73 has his impromptu, short notice, back road, scratchy social ride coming up at time of filming this weekend. And this is the only bike I have to ride it on, so I'm just taking it out to see how he's doing, and I'll decide then whether I'm comfortable going out on it. Because if you remember the last few videos with this bike, I've had a few mechanical issues here and there. It's not been running its best. It's never been running its best, let's be real. And as much as most of the ride is smaller stuff, there are some bigger roads and I will still need to keep up. And there's also a forecast of I think 50 mile/hour winds on that day, so if I get a headwind, I might go backwards at the power levels I have on this. But yeah, this video is not about this bike, so you'll have seen the title and the thumbnail, whatever they end up being, but sadly it's not clickbait, it's not hyperbole. The Transalp is gone forever. So let's chat about that, because I am bummed about it. I'm really quite depressed actually. It sucked. So the last video on the channel, a couple of weeks ago now because of weather, is the reveal of the Transalp. And ironically, everything I'm about to talk about has been happening sort of immediately after that. So the whole time I was there, like, responding to comments being like, oh my god, like, nice new bike, congratulations, you're gonna have great fun on that. I'm there kind of like, oh, bite that. But yeah, so if you remember in that video, did I mention that I had the fueling issue? Well, the first issue I had on that bike was when I was sort of test riding. Lovely old bug, hello. 1300, very nice. Yeah, the first issue I had, I was riding around just locally, just, you know, getting a vibe for it. The bike had started like over fueling. It was like the choke had got sort of stuck on, so even though I'd taken the choke off, maybe at like the lever, maybe the other end, the sort of the choke mechanism had stuck on a bit, something like that. But it was idling really high. It was idling like yeah man, yeah man. Yeah, it was idling at maybe like 2,500 RPM, like it was really up there. And I started like missing shifts because you'd roll the throttle off, but it wouldn't roll off all the way, and you just sort of munch it into the next gear. It was really not ideal. But it seemed to go away. Like I turned the bike off, turned it back on again, and it kind of went away. So I sort of just glossed over it. It was just like, yeah, whatever. Like, bike's been stood for a while. It's, you know, it's probably just, I don't know, bad fuel or parts are stiff or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Well, the next issue, I mentioned the next issue in my reveal video, is at one point I take my hands off the bars and I'm saying like something like, oh, it's nice and smooth. Oh, not quite, because it started shaking a little bit. This one actually is smooth, but which is impressive given I've got no fork oil. But yeah, it had a slight issue. Well, actually that slight shake turned out to be really quite a big shake. I'll put a clip up on screen, but it was nasty, it was bad. And what it turned out, the reason I hadn't spotted it immediately is because it only presents itself at lower speeds. So 40 miles an hour and above, it was fine, it would track nice and smoothly as normal, but 40 and below, it would just start shaking. It was really bad. I'm gonna have to open this again after this car. To open this again. Apologies for the winds, etc. You know the score. Yeah, it was really, it would shake badly side to side. It was quite unnerving. And there's a million issues that can cause what's known as a death wobble, but it's not quite that severe. And it could be like, it can be the rear wheel, like if the rear wheel is not quite in alignment with the front, like maybe someone's adjusted the chain, they've knocked it out of alignment, it can shuffle the bike out. Now I thought it was headstock bearings initially, because I had a notch on my Magna in the last MOT, and my mechanic showed me how to get a feel for, you know, take the front wheel, unload the front wheel, and then feel for the sort of the sticking point in the middle of the rotation of the handlebars. And it felt like the Transalp had a bit of that, but it wasn't so bad, but it felt good a little bit. You remember I bought the bike from Checkered Flag Motorcycles, took it back to them. They said it was fine. They checked the headstock bearings, they checked the adjustment collar on the headstock bearings, They were happy with it. They said actually they diagnosed it as an unevenly worn front tyre. They were like, no worries, we'll order a tyre in, it's no bother. They were very good. And I'm going to be very clear from the start that Checkered Flag have been very good throughout this process. Whether or not I'm entirely happy with them is irrelevant, because they have been very good throughout. So they diagnosed a new tyre, they ordered one. I went, cool, no worries, and I left and I went away. Riding home from Checkered Flag, I then went up to Dartmoor, because I was like, hey, I've got some time, it's not entirely dark just yet, I'll go to Dartmoor. And I rode up to Dartmoor, everything was fine, had a nice little ride up there. And then up on Dartmoor, the bike very suddenly ran out of fuel on me. I was quite confused because it's got a fuel gauge, and I hadn't noticed. I knew it was like down the last couple of bars, but it wasn't like out. So I was a bit confused about why I was suddenly out of fuel. I also discovered at that point even, that the Transalp does not have a manual petcock, which is helpful. So this bike, and the Magna for that matter, have a manual fuel tap. If you run out of fuel on ordinary fuel, you just change to reserve and then ride to the nearest fuel station. It's fine. Well, the Transalp, in their infinite wisdom, has just has an automatic petcock, like a vacuum feed petcock, and that means that once you're out, you're out. So I was now stranded up on Dartmoor. I don't know a huge amount of people around that area, and I know even less people with cars. Most people I know are just, you know, pedestrians. So I had to walk 6 miles back across Dartmoor in the dwindling light back to Tavistock, get fuel, and then luckily I managed to hitchhike back to the bike. Filled it up, went home, or filled it up, went to a petrol station, filled it up the rest of the way, went home, thought nothing more of it. I did look on the forums, and some of the forums said that actually the Transalp 650, their fuel gauge is a little bit like vague, like it does have a tendency when you're a little bit low to just like drop off quite suddenly, like a bit like a phone battery. So I didn't think any further. I was just like, okay, you know, it's whatever. That was annoying, but it's user error, right? Well, the next issue came when I rode it the next time, which is riding it back to Checkered Flag to get that tyre fitted, which they'd ordered it. I arrived and I glanced down at the bike. I noticed there's something leaking down the back of the engine. Some fluid, some grease, some oil. I couldn't quite tell what it was. Well, what it turned out to be is fuel, because the bike had a split fuel line under the tank and it was leaking fuel directly down the back of the front cylinder into the V of the engine, into the hottest part of the engine. That could very easily have, I could have gone up like Ghost Rider, like that could easily have burnt the bike down with me on it. It could easily have burnt the bike down after I parked it at home and taken my property with it, you know what I mean? Like that's like, as much as like a fuel line can happen at any time and it's a 23-year-old bike and blah blah blah, like it's still, that's quite a nasty issue, potentially. So I go to Checkered Flag and I'm like, yo, I have the tyre, but also what's going on here? And they end up having to keep the bike because they don't have the parts in, they don't have the fuel lines and whatever, they don't have the stuff in to fix it on that same day. Again, they were very good. They did all of this stuff without, they didn't expect payment for any of this stuff. It was all kind of, there is no warranty on that bike officially, but you know, shaken hand warranty, they were sorting it all. And they even, one of the mechanics even drove me home at the bequest of the workshop like manager, sort of runner, which is a guy called Rob, who I believe is part owner of Checkered Flags generally. I couldn't quite tell where the hierarchy is just there, but I think it is. Lovely man, very very lovely man. From talking to him and also from talking to the junior mechanics and stuff, like they say that actually he's always about like, gotta help the customer, gotta help people. They sell the bikes quite cheap there just because they want to give back, sort of thing. Like it needs to just turn over a business, but like not, you know, they're not pushing big profits. Yeah, the mechanic drove me home. They then delivered the bike back out to me again. Job done. So I thought, you can see where this pattern is going now. I got the bike back on like Wednesday afternoon. I work from home, so I was able to be there to get it delivered, but like was still working, right? So I delivered it, and then I had it delivered, and then I just stuck it away in the carport, went back to work, and that was it. I couldn't look at it that same day because by the time I was done with work it was dark. The next day, I was aware, I went up to, well, I was supposed to go up to Triumph Factory Visitor Experience, and then it snowed, and I spent 3 hours on the A30 instead. Good times. More on that story another time, because that sucked. But I was away all that day. I was also away the next day, because I went up to Motorcycle Live. I got back, Friday I got back, I was busy. Saturday I was busy, and then Sunday we had storms that weekend. So didn't leave the house Sunday. Monday morning was the first time I got to, the first chance I got to look at the bike properly, look at it in daylight. And I go out and I have a look to inspect the, you know, the work and whatever. And I go, huh, that tank looks awfully greasy. What's all this like discoloration around the tank and on the sort of on the bottom edge and down onto the side of the engine? What's all this greasiness here? And I take the seat off, and the fuel tank is leaking. The bike had a dodgy bodge repair to the fuel tank, which I was well aware of. It was one of the various, like, it was a little bit tatty, like I said in the review. Like, it's aesthetically tatty, mechanically sound is what it was supposed to be. So it had this repair on the back of the tank. I don't know if it rusted through or split or what, but or been like dented and damaged or whatever. But it had this repair where someone had clearly just like whacked a big fucking glob of 2-part epoxy on and just called it good. It was really ugly. I was going to like paint it white just to hide it a bit better, but regardless, it was there. I knew it was there. I was assured it was solid, and you know, it's one of those where it's like, oh, it looks like crap, but it functions, and it's going to be, it'll probably outlast the rest of the tank, you know, one of those. But no, that repair was leaking throughout. It was leaking out of 3-4 different like pinhole leak throughs. And then the repair itself, you could see the fuel was building up inside it like a cyst. It was gross. Like, you could see these pockets of fuel, and you could like move them around by squishing with your finger. And then if you squished it along, it would squirt out of the pinholes. So at that point, the bike now, this isn't a tyre, or isn't £2.50 worth of fuel line, or you know, these basically consumable parts. This is, oh, now it needs a fuel tank. And realistically, you're not going to be able to re-repair the repair. It's going to need a brand new fuel tank. Oh, it is moist along here. I'm regretting not putting, I've got a 2-part chain cover for this bike. So I've got the open one on currently. I need to swap back to the winter one, which is an enclosed top and bottom chain surround, but I haven't yet. Anyway, yeah, so the bike now needs a new fuel tank, and then that fuel, so you have to source a second-hand Transalp 650 fuel tank. You'll then have to paint it, because I wouldn't accept it back. Yeah, I wouldn't have like a white bike with a grey tank on it. That would look crap. So they would then have to paint the tank, and then they'd have to transplant the filler cap, because the filler cap uses the ignition key, so you need it to be the original. And I don't know if that's just a straight cap, or if it needs the bezel. But if it needs the bezel, I bet they've got security bolts on them, because this is Honda in its 90s hiss era, so they were a little bit anal about security back then. So I bet that's got security bolts. But yeah, like, regardless, it's not a small job anymore. It's supposed to be down for a few weeks probably. It's just like, that's probably going to push it to the other side of like Christmas. Yeah, I was just like, it's going to be gone for ages. And I'd already like started out that bike's ownership with the issues with the insurance that I mentioned and how expensive that was. So it's like, I'm paying through the nose for this bike, which has had 3 dangerous faults in the first 3 weeks, has left me stranded, technically, left me stranded twice out of the 2 times I've ridden it further than my own postcode. And now it's got more issues. And at this part, I never said this part's checkered flag. I tried to be polite-ish, but I was kind of like, I didn't trust them to fix it, was the unfortunate truth. And they're very good mechanics, and they're very nice people, but they had that fuel tank off the bike in their fucking hands and gave it back to me with a hole in it. You know what I mean? Like, this is not, this leak didn't magically appear in the 4 days the bike was parked in my carport between me getting it back and me going to look at it the next time. Like, it was leaking the whole time. And I think realistically it was probably leaking before I bought it, because the bike was obviously sold with the usual like dregs of fuel that you get from a a second-hand dealer, and they even admitted, like, oh yeah, we don't fill them up, like, we, you know, whatever, like. So I bet it's been leaking the whole time. They've just not known because the fuel's been too low, and the first time that I've put a full tank in it, either the levels got high enough to reach the entry point on the inside of the tank, whatever channel it's finding its way through, or the weight of the fuel in a full tank increases the pressure enough to push its way through, or whatever. Like, I think that house is for sale, that little cottage there. I'm sure I've seen that picture. A lovely place to live, not so much if you only had a CG as your bike. Yeah, so I was just over it, and I was, oh, hello baby, oh, let's go say hello, shall we? Yeah, I was just over it. I didn't trust them to fix it. I didn't trust the bike. I didn't trust there to not be subsequent issues, even more subsequent issues. Hey, gorgeous. God, it is grotty out here right now. Oh, I've still not fitted the still not fitted that new side stand. Oh, that's good enough. I don't think I was coming up here. Oh, you're pretty. Got their coats on, look at them. Oh, it's a hell of a spot, isn't it? Like, this little, like, valley here. A little bit nestled, probably a little bit sheltered, which is good because we've got some storms coming up. Just the two of them, I think. Love it, love it. Oh, I'll even be, I was hoping to get a little nose scritch there, but not quite. Oh, I apologise about blurring there. I'll have to blur that. I'll probably just blur the whole road. Oh, I'm going to get mud all over my sides, over my foot pegs now. Anyway, let me just they're not the grippiest pegs, these are the best of times. Yeah, I'd run out of patience and faith in the bike and faith in them, and I was just kind of if the insurance had been cheap, I might have just kept it rolling and just like gone, you know, let's work through it, let's get this fixed as well and see what happens, sort of thing. But with the insurance being like an issue already, I was just like, you know what, mate, I'm just over it. So yeah, I ended up rejecting it. I tried to call them that same day. Turns out they're closed Mondays. So I sent them an email, a long email, but basically just being like, I like you guys, I've been your customer for years, but you're taking the piss now, take this bike back. And I heard nothing. I had nothing back from them the whole week. There was no reply. There are reasons for that. I won't get into them here, but there are reasons for that. It wasn't them intentionally avoiding me, put it that way. Yeah, regardless, they didn't get back to me the whole week, and I had a busy week at work, but I was also at a fairly like stressy, like I didn't know how that would go, because here's the thing, like when you buy a second-hand vehicle, particularly like a more budget second-hand vehicle, you can get away with 1, maybe 2 repairs or updates generally, and then you run out of good grace, right? and then the dealer will turn around and go, you know what, mate, it's actually your bike now, fuck off. Like, you know what I mean? So I was well aware I'd already used 2 of my honorary breakdowns, and I was coming now with a 3rd. But also, like, when you try and then ask for money back, people don't want to know, you never get money back. Everyone turns quite nasty. So fairly stressy about how that was going to go, and I was like, oh my god, I haven't paid all this money for you know, this shit bike, and like, am I going to have to like fix this and try and transplant this tank myself, and I'm not going to be able to paint it, so I'm going to have to like have this ugly tank for a while, but, like, you know what I mean? Like, I was quite angry and nervous about the whole thing, and angrier progressively throughout the week as they didn't respond. And I was like anally checking my inbox and checking my spam folders and checking my own email I sent to them, and like checking and double checking and checking that I'd got the right email address and hadn't typoed it or anything like that, you know. And so I was yeah, it was a fairly testy week, but I knew that Friday I had a day off, and it coming up anyway, and I was like, you know what, I'm busy at work, I don't have time to be making phone calls really and chase people. I was actually quite busy for a change. I was like, you know what, I've got this day out coming up, I'll give them till that Friday to respond to my email. If they don't, I'll go down there and it was a bit like, I'll go down there. I'm going to go down there and have it out with him. So Friday came, no reply. I got in my car in the rain and went on hustling down there. And laters, pheasant. Yeah, I hustled down there fully ready for a scrap. Like, I went down there fired, and I busted it, you know, walk in. And I speak to him. I'm like, have you read my email? And he said, you know, he's like, well, no, I haven't. I'm like, yeah, well, apparently. But I'm like, I explained the issue, and he's straight away, he's very nice about it. He's straight away like, oh, you know, I'm so sorry, like, you know, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to order a tanker or? And he says the order, and I'm like, no, I want you to take the bike back. Nah. And he's like, okay, yeah, that's fine. It knocked the wind straight the fuck out of my sails. Honestly, I was so ready to be like, no, you listed it. Oh, okay. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I was so ready for a fight, and then when I didn't get one, I was like, what do you mean you're gonna take it back? So I was just like, oh, okay. And he had this little like half smile on his face, like, yeah, of course we'll take it back. Like, why would we not? You know what I mean? Like it was the most logical thing in the world. And they did. They they took it back. They refunded me the same day, the full amount I paid for it, and they collected it about a week later, which is actually yesterday. And that's it. It's gone forever. And I'm left having lost money from it, because obviously I got the money back for the bike, but I lost money on the insurance. There were so many breakdowns, it took so long to get to this point that we actually missed the 14-day cool-off period for the insurance policy. So I got done for a normal cancellation. Actually, it actually wasn't as bad as I expected. I was expecting to get dicked out of, like, you know, 40% of the policy, because that's generally how these things go. It wasn't that bad. I basically paid the cancellation fee, and I didn't lose that much more beyond that. I lost some money on the insurance, I lost some money on the first month's tax, I lost some money on little bits and pieces. Like, I'd already ordered a key tag, because all my bikes have these like custom key tags where they say like Spectre on one side, the bike on the other side, and then they're colour coded. So if I'm grabbing my keys, I can just go, oh, yellow key, there's the Magna, blue key, there's the CG, you know, white key, there's the Transalp. So, and they're all the same brand, the same company. So I'd ordered that already, because they take ages to arrive. Yeah, so like little bits. So I'm probably out, oh, I don't know, 100 quid maybe, somewhere in that ballpark maybe. I didn't even drain the tank as well. I did want to. If it had a normal petcock, I probably would have. But with it being all like vacuum feed, I was like, I can pull the fuel line off and try and drain it, but then like I'm gonna have to try and ram this fuel line back on while it's spewing fuel everywhere. Like, I'm not gonna be able to turn the fuel off, and it became more fiddly than it's worth. I don't have a siphon, so they've even got a full tank of fuel out of me, the bastards. So yeah, that's us. The bike is gone, and I'm conflicted about my feelings to Checkered Flag, because like I say, they have been extremely good to me throughout. Better than any, excuse me, better than any bike dealer I've ever bought from, any car dealer. Like, they've been extremely good about taking the bike back, about dealing with these repairs, never asking any money. Like, they've delivered it out to me twice, they've delivered me out to my home. Like, it's a, you know, 45-minute drive from Checkered Flag to my place each way. So for their mechanic, one of their mechanics to drive me home, that's an hour and a half mechanics labour they've missed out on. You know, it's like it's no. And again, same again, every time they deliver it out, there's at least one mechanic. There's sometimes been two mechanics, or like a mechanic and another admin staff, whatever. Like, either way, they're losing staff doing this again and again, and coming out and getting it again at the end. Like, they've been very good about it all. On the other hand, the fuel line I'm going to let them off on, because the fuel line could have happened at any time. When I was up in Dartmoor and it suddenly fucked out of fuel, it could easily have split then, and that's why it ran out so quickly, that last section. It's because it split up on Dartmoor and it just dumped the rest of its fuel out. Where the fuck am I? Am I in Launceston? I think I am, you know. Let's go down here, shall we? I didn't really mean to come up here, to be honest, but that's alright. Yeah, so I'll let them off the fuel line, because that could have happened at any time, and it's a 23-year-old bike. Like, fuel line split. Is this my turning? No, it isn't. The next one. Yeah, that could happen any time. That's a consumable part. The tyre I'm not letting them off on, because on one hand, yes, that's a consumable part. On the other hand, they shouldn't have MOT'd that with a death shake, a bar shake. They shouldn't have sold it with a death shake. Like, that they should have test rode that bike and noticed that and sorted it before it was sold. So that I'm sort of blaming them for. And then the fuel tank I'm absolutely blaming them for, because they sold it. They sold me a bike with a hole in the fucking fuel tank, a very small hole, a very slow leak. It wasn't gushing out or anything like that. It was a slow decline, but it is still a fuel leak. There aren't many more dangerous faults on a vehicle than leaking fuel, you know? It's one of those where they've done their very utmost to rectify the issue once they find it. Yeah. Tell you what, actually, come here. Yeah, you're good. Cheers, buddy. You see, small bike life. That's the benefits of a small motor. Nice. What was I saying? Yeah, it's one of those where they've sold the bike with faults, but they have done their best to rectify the faults. And they would have fixed it, but if I wanted them to fix the tank or replace the tank, they would have. They absolutely would have. And I think actually that's their plan anyway, is they've bought a new tank, from what I've heard. And they're actually going to paint it up in a like a martini livery, like they're going to paint it up and put stripes on it and stuff. It's probably going to look quite cool. So keep an eye, if you do want a Transalp with brand new fuel tank, fuel lines and front tyre, check out the front of Checkered Flag in the next like few months. So yeah, that's that really. So overall, I think I would still buy another bike from Checkered Flag in the future, because like I say, they have been good and they've done their best to rectify the issue. I would just maybe inspect the bike close. Not that I couldn't have spotted any of these issues. That's the thing. Like, I wasn't able to test ride it properly because I didn't have the insurance for it, and there was no fuel in it, or there wasn't enough fuel in it to make the leaks apparent. So I couldn't have spotted this. I couldn't have known, even if I looked at it harder than I did. But I didn't look very hard in general, because I was just I trusted them, because I was just like, well, it's Checkered Flag, it's going to be fine, isn't it? You know what I mean? Like, let's go this way, shall we? So yeah, I think I would look closer next time, but I would still buy them again. That's kind of where I'm at in regards to Checkered Flag. And I'm still going to go there to the cafe. I'm still going to go to their bike nights and support their business. I buy my consumables from there. I buy my chain lube and stuff from their shop because I like to support them. I bought that helmet from them, you know. So I'm not too mad at them, but I kind of am a little bit, you know. And as for the bike, I'm quite sad. Like, as much as it was my decision to get rid of it, the model I really enjoyed, and when it was working, it was a great ride. It was comfortable. I really enjoyed having a bike I could take down roads like this, but it's bigger than this. But I could take it down roads like this and not be guilty or worried in the way that I would with a Magna. And I loved being back in the upright, tall riding position with loads of leg room, because I used to have a V-Strom and I had a Versys as well, you know, so I have missed that riding position. So yeah, it's one of those where I really enjoyed the Transalp, and I'm sad it's gone, even though I'm the reason it's gone, you know. As to what's going to replace it, and whether anything's going to replace it, I'm going to do that in a separate video, because I'm aware I've been yapping for a while now. This video is probably really long already. There's decisions to be made about whether I replace the Transalp. If I do replace it, what do I replace it with? There's then decisions about this bike, because I was going to take this bike off the road and just have the Transalp. The Transalp's gone now, so this is eventually going to need work and money put into it. It already needs work and money, but it's going to need to pass its next MOT. It's not going to pass the next MOT without help from me now. So it's, do I put money into this to keep it going, even though it's like really slow, or do I put money into something better? I'll make a video discussing all of these, because there's a lot of decisions and I don't know the answers to a lot of these yet. For now, I just wanted to make a video to update, because I'm still getting comments being like, yo, love the new bike, that's going to be great. I didn't want that. I didn't want the last video for a while to be me revealing a bike I no longer have, you know. I'm going to leave that there. So thank you very much for watching. As always, take care, ride safe, have a good Christmas if I don't see you between now and then, which I may not because of the weather. So have a good one, take care of yourself, and fare thee well.